Wednesday, March 20th. This is the DEI subcommittee meeting. We'll start with a roll call and at the same time, introduction of new members. Right there, Chloe. So we'll kind of combine the two if it's okay. We'll start with you, Chloe. Just kind of state your name. Oh, sorry. State your name and your role, like student, parent, community member, that type of thing.
Okay, hi, I'm Chloe Diehouse, and I am a senior student. Yes.
Hi, I'm NKSD, and I'm head clerk at Hamilton Elementary School.
Hi, I'm Mary Lo Crusty, parent advocate.
I'm Lauren Beets, and I'm parent.
Hi, Rob Mezzanotte, assistant superintendent.
Hi, I'm Shivali Finkelstein, high school principal.
I'm Dave Albin, world language teacher at Davis Middle School.
Melissa McKelsey, parent.
Katie Gabriel, Black community member.
James Binge, junior in high school.
Hi, I'm Jen Lima, school committee member.
I'm Kali Ashmer, community member.
Hi, Erin Earl, chair of the school committee.
Hi, my name is William Moss. I'm a sophomore in high school.
Jane Stokes, I'm a parent.
Victoria Cormier, I'm a sophomore in high school.
Awesome, thank you all, and I'm so excited to have new members. I want to thank everybody for their interest, and we're really excited to have you on board. This is the largest that our group has been, and it's super exciting, and I'm so thrilled to have so many student voices represented. Chloe has been an amazing advocate, but I'm sure she's glad not to be the only student voice at the table, so thank you all.
I can't represent everyone.
So thank you all so much. The next order of business today is to approve the meeting minutes from February 12th. So can I get a motion from somebody who was here for that meeting? Motion to approve. Perfect. Second?
Second.
Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
You want to count, or
No,
do you care?
I'll know who's.
Yeah, alright.
Okay. So I don't know how many of you were able to take a look through or even actually participated in the equity vision statement work, but that's what's next, and I'm going to turn that over to Rob because he's the one who's been spearheading it.
All right, so we are, so our equity vision statement has been one of the goals that we set as a group this year. It stems from our equity audit, which it was one of the many recommendations that we had, and as a group we kind of collectively decided that would be an initiative that we would want to make happen this year. So you should have all hopefully saw the survey that we sent out. We tried to send it out very broadly around town to everybody, and hopefully you had a chance to weigh in on it, but either way, what we did was we gathered the feedback we got from students, parents, community members, guardians, all staff, teachers, etc., to again get feedback on the draft statement that we had put forward as a group. We received a lot of feedback, which was great. We received a lot of input from various stakeholders within our community. And so at our last meeting, not at our last meeting, at a previous meeting, we had, as a group, sort of gone through the feedback we received, which was mostly written feedback, which takes a while to sift through and get a understanding of, collectively about what we're hearing from people. And what we tried to do is we tried to kind of identify, because what we asked people for was feedback on the statement. And so we tried to really do the best we could to separate out actual feedback on the statement versus just other commentary that wasn't necessarily something we would ignore, but was not actually feedback on the statement. Okay, if that makes sense. So we tried to do that. And then what we did is we discussed in our group a process that we wanted to do to identify themes within that feedback that we would identify. And themes being what were some things that we saw repetitively maybe about suggestions that people had for maybe improving the statement or adding something or taking something away or rewording things and so on and so forth. And that's kind of where we left it last time was with that process. And so we left it with Dr. Earl was going to sort of like sort through the themes, I guess, is the best way to put it, but maybe you can kind of take it from there.
That's the simplest way to say it is that I basically went through
it seemed, the committee, in the conversations that we had, we definitely, I think, Rob did a nice job kind of doing an initial look, but we wanted to kind of organize it so that we could analyze it a little bit better. And so I went through and put it into different categories. They received the link, right? Yeah, and so in the different tabs, you'll see basically my first sweep through on it was the first tab is just suggestions to the actual statement. So what Mr. Mezzanotte said about how, like, one's about language or grammar or maybe word changes, etc. Then I did a different category that was implementation and accountability. So any comments that people wrote about, like, a statement's nice, but you better do something, or you know, how do we make sure that this actually gets enacted? So there were some that were in there that are connected to the statement, but maybe not like directly related. And then the third category was ones about, there was some feedback that was kind of like statements of didn't like the statement, so put those in, kind of categorize those. And then there were some that weren't directly connected to the prompt, so maybe interesting things, but not directly connected to the statement. There was a lot, over 150, that were just positive, no suggestions. People just writing, like the statement, great job, things like that. And then there were some that were like no feedback, like literally I didn't delete anything, so some just wrote not applicable, and I made sure everything got up place. So it basically is just a different way to look at it to hopefully try to help us move to figuring out what we want to do with the statement, but also being able to read and understand all of the other pieces, so.
I just want to say thank you for doing that.
Yeah,
Couldn't
no
have been
worries.
easy. It's a lot of work.
The big dork in me really had a lot of fun doing it, to be honest. It's also not perfect, like, you could probably make a case for moving some around, but happy to help, and I do think it'll help us as we're trying to help Mr. Mezzanotte, like, work towards, like, okay, what do we actually want to change about the statement, what do we need to consider? Because when you look at that first tab, and we can probably put it up too, for the suggestions to the statement, like, you'll see there's some themes within that section, and that's probably where I think, Jen, we should focus. And so, on trying to get, like, that, those are the ones that are really connected to that. Obviously, there's some other stuff too we can pull in, but, so yeah.
Rob, do you want to throw it up on the?
Sure. Yeah.
The one thing I didn't do too is I didn't want to, like, lead the group too much, and so I left the suggestions to statements random. So I thought about, like, trying to clump them, but I didn't want to, like, I don't know, I just kind of tried to leave it as organic as possible for you all to be able to make your own assumptions on what was important or what wasn't. And so, but there's definitely something, you'll notice, like, as you're looking at it, like, there's some things that multiple people said, or some things that just one person said, but, like, maybe this group will be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense, we should probably include that, or we could do something like that.
One thing that I remember that.
If you all wanna sit, there, like, you could move too if you wanna, right? Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that's.
We don't usually have a table there, like, that's how
Yeah,
exciting this
that's-
is, that we have this many. Aw.
All around the room. One of the people said, and I thought that this was important because we had talked about this before, that this statement, we wanted to be understood by every single grade level. And I remember that somebody had said something like that this is not something that, like, children in elementary school would be able to understand. And that was one of the comments about editing it, and I can't remember which statement that it was, but I thought that that was an important thing to note, that, you know, so I don't know whether that means, like, in addition to the length, which I think was like a repetitive theme, was that it maybe was too, that I don't think it would be understood by, like, a second grader or a fifth grader or maybe even a 10th grader, you know what I mean? Like, so I think that was important, because we want it to be something that speaks to everybody in the district.
Yeah, and we talked about that being a challenge,
Yeah.
because really, like, when we talk about something that is this inclusive and all-encompassing, we want to make sure we are, like, being as what am I trying to say? But being as, yeah, being as widespread as we can be with our statement, it becomes tricky to do those two things, you know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, I think, that was feedback we had a lot of, is, you know, if we could shorten it.
Yeah. You only actually had 5.
Really?
Yeah, isn't that weird?
That is weird.
I just did a like VLOOKUP of it. And so I think I don't think they're wrong, but I do think there's only 5 or 6 that noted that.
Yep.
So that's valid. Like but it's not like, it wasn't 50.
Yep.
So just something to think about.
Yeah, it seemed like more than that.
No, it's because it's what catches your eye,
Yeah.
and when you're looking at data, like you put your own thoughts on it. So like
Yeah.
if you
Yep.
think it's long, then you notice when people write it's long. You know, like or something like that maybe. But it's also long.
Mhm. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. There's no doubt about it. One thing, maybe I
Read
should
the
read the
draft.
statement,
Yeah.
just for everybody,
Could
just
we
so
print-
they
could
know
we
what we're
print
working
it,
on.
Rob, the current draft, is that possible to print a copy?
Sure, I can do that.
I'm just thinking like if we're looking at that, maybe having it in front of us might help. Especially for new folks. I don't have it memorized by any means either.
Okay.
I'll go grab it for
I
you.
can go get it if you.
Do you mind? Let me just, cause this is, I just wanna copy and paste this onto its own. Actually, you know what, let me make sure it's the right one, cause there was some I kinda tweaked, I wanna take the one right from the survey, yeah.
Yeah, that's the most recent.
And I'll print, what, like 20 copies? 25?
Yeah, 25.
Okay,
We just need this badge, right?
yeah, I can do it, I can,
Oh.
sorry.
That's why I did not put it because my badge is not here.
I don't know if my bad does my so I don't probably have paper privileges.
You don't have door privileges.
I know, I don't have
Definitely
door
don't have paper
privileges.
privileges.
It's not working. But do you even see that?
No, I think it's my computer.
Do you see
I
any
don't
Wi-Fi?
even see any
Do you see
Wi-Fi.
any one of them coming up?
No, it's strange.
That's so strange.
I know.
I wonder if there's a way to add one.
I'm sure, this is a new computer, so I just,
Yeah.
I'll have to
It
figure it
should
out.
pick up like, it should pick up Wi-Fi.
I know. Maybe take- I'm on my phone, so it's not.
I really appreciated some of the positive comments that people put in, like that was so
There were a lot of nice ones.
affirming to read. And especially the one, thanks to those who have contributed to creating this updated statement, made me grow into it. I thought that was
That was cute,
beautiful. Yeah.
I also think like my eye also always goes to negative stuff, and like when you quantify them, it was like over 150 like yay whatevers, and then 16 like we hate your statement. Like so like you know like they were loud and they were upsetting to me at least, but like they were not the majority of feedback by any means. And that's not even counting positive statements that had feedback. You know like some people wrote I love it, but your grammar word's wrong. You know like that is not even counting those. Awesome. What do you like? Okay.
Two of the things that I saw repeated were religion and language.
Yep, I forgot my screen on the screen. Yep. And so one of the things that we had talked about last time was to maybe make that intro statement or that second statement more in line with the district.
Oh, we did talk
Um,
about that, yeah,
so-
yep.
So I did kind of tweak that. Forgive me for my notes here, but I did kind of tweak that a little bit here, just as a draft. And again, some of that statement, I'm not sure would apply, because there's things in that statement like age over 40. I'm not sure that would go along in the equity vision statement when we're talking about, student equity. But anyway, I changed, this is just a draft. All students, regardless of their race, ethnicity, language, religion, socioeconomic status, gender identity or expression, country of ancestral origin, those are the things that I added. All right, and that, I just pulled those from the statements, the district statement on discrimination and prohibition.
Country of ancestral origin is ethnicity, so I think it's a little redundant. What do you guys think?
Is it redundant? Is that something we?
Is that what's on our letterhead?
Our letterhead is, I think it's both, yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, I believe so. I'd have to go look, and
I'm gonna
I don't wanna go, do you mind looking?
Yeah.
All right. Just 'cause I wanna
Doesn't
search
mean
it.
that you're wrong. I think that could be wrong, like, that could be redundant too, isn't that?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it could be, like, you know what I mean?
Exactly, I just wouldn't wanna change it because that's what Andrew
Yeah.
gave us to include in
Yeah.
our non-discrimination
Yeah.
standpoint. I mean, statement.
It does sort of mean the same thing, but at the same time, like, what's the harm if it's extra, if we can make sure we're including everyone, even if it is a little redundant, I don't really see it's not.
We can check too.
Yeah, we could definitely check with Andrew about that. Our lawyer gave us that when we were updating all of our anti-discrimination statements.
If this
Well-
statement's in our hands, take it out. If it's not, it's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah,
You know
no,
what
we
I
can
mean?
check them, but it's
I-
okay.
Yeah, it's both in the
I
statement.
think, national origin is a different thing, because that's like, that would be people who are.
National
Country
origin
of
is
ancestral
different.
origin.
Yeah, so does that need
Ancestral
to
is,
be in there instead?
We'll check and see where it came from, because I don't, he didn't write it, like, it probably came from source, so that's a good
well,
point.
that's actually called nationality, so that could go in there. So what you're saying is nationality, and what that's saying, country of ancestral origin, is ethnicity. So that was a good one, yeah.
Right, like if you had foreign students who came to
Yeah,
school,
uh-huh.
then
Or
that would be
dual
included.
citizens, things like that.
Yeah, we can check.
So just to be clear, because there's some other things in the statement. So the statement says, this is something we can maybe discuss. The statement includes the word disability. We for this use the word ability, right? I don't know how the group feels about that. I always felt like it's kind of better to look at it as ability, right? And diversity of abilities, but that was kind of like where I was going there. We have socioeconomic status, we have sexual orientation, gender identity, expression, country of origin. Interrupted education status.
Ooh. That's beautiful.
Do we need to, should that be included?
I like it.
I think if we're going to use the language that we use in our non-discrimination clause, that we should.
Okay.
Interrupted
education status, okay.
Instability or disability?
In that clause, it is.
And I think to Jen's point, also to what you brought up earlier, Rob,
Yep.
I want, some of the feedback was, is this statement just for students or is it for the entire community? And so I thought that was something that would be interesting for this group to talk about.
I agree.
Yeah, cause
Yeah.
right now it's written where every student belongs, but we did receive some feedback about like, does this not apply to faculty, staff, administration, et cetera? And so if we make it more general, then the statement you made about age would apply, so.
Correct. And it says here, it also includes military status, genetic information, including family medical history, or any other category protected by law. So yeah, that does open up the question, and that was something that we got feedback on from I think a few people, what's the scope intentionally of the statement? Is it something that we are really focusing on equity vision statement for specific students? Or is it more broad than that to include, staff and,
I think it's a
Others.
district, so it should be everybody who falls within our district, which is our staff, our students, our, everybody.
okay,
What
So-
do other people think?
yeah. Anyone else wanna weigh in on that? Cause I think that does kind of, like, that'll change the statement a little.
I would like to suggest something. A lot of larger organizations have a DEI statement that doesn't include all those specifics, but rather just offers a blanket statement about DEI. Because what I think the problem that comes here is identifying every group. You have the danger of excluding a group that maybe is not on there, rather than just making a blanket statement of all inclusion of everyone, including students, teachers, or whoever you want.
Fair point, yeah. Okay. So would the solution there then be less specificity with the statement?
I would actually take out that whole line there and just put an inclusive statement that says, I can perhaps find an example, just 1 minute, like the United Way says, for example, we welcome that every person brings unique perspective and experience to our education in the community. Something as inclusive as that way there's no one left out of that, instead of specifically mentioning
The different
every
groups?
category.
Okay. Thought?
What are others' thoughts?
Yeah.
Sorry, my question is, if we're going to expand the statement to include all members of the NK community, which I think is a great idea, but we did, like you guys mentioned, I know it was actually less people than we thought. We did have some people that talked about it maybe being too long, even though actually it was only 5 or 6, didn't you mention that? My concern is, like, because we really wanna make sure the statement is one that is accessible in terms of like, easy to understand for all people, how can we, if we are going to include everyone, we will probably have to change the language in the bottom half as well. It kind of talks about applying their learning and stuff.
Mhm.
That doesn't really work if we're including everyone. How can we make sure that it's not so long that it becomes less accessible for all readers? If that does that make any sense?
Makes perfect sense,
Yeah.
yep.
So it's, excuse me for asking GPT this, but it says universal is a word that encompasses, it includes all groups without any exception. That
Well-
universal is the word. It's a word that includes all groups without exception, says ChatGPT though.
Okay,
I told your
Very good.
students to put their earmuffs on.
I know.
yeah. True, true.
Um,
Okay, all right, so,
Well, and that's, like, the purpose of this, I just wanna go back to the equity audit, which is why we did this. The purpose of this equity vision statement was to specifically focus equity for marginalized classes and communities. So, while I think that, like, just saying for everybody is good, like, that's not what we're trying to do here. Like, this was to specifically say that we are trying to specifically say that we are a district who is trying to focus on equity and to put into place policy, practices, and procedures to, like, narrow the gaps and, like, to make sure that we are being intentional about ensuring that we are focusing on historically marginalized communities. And by just saying all, I'm concerned that we're not doing that.
I do think it's nice for people to see themselves specifically mentioned as well. But we do have the thing of leaving people out, which is tricky. But we could always add people.
I think we're human. I think we did a really good job with that statement. Whoever wrote it is like, it's awesome. And then I think the people, if they come to us and be like, hey, I don't see myself, you go, great, in the next meeting, we'll talk about it to add you. You know, it's like, but this, I agree with you. It's like really nice for them to see themselves, because there's so many committees like this out there trying to reach out, trying to reach out. as much as this is great, this is what we have, and we want this filled. So how are we gonna get that, is to call them out. So when they see themselves in there, they go, oh wait, this is me? Oh, this is about me? I wanna be there. So when you call someone out, it kind of redirects the focus from the noise of the emails and the endless things they get every day. So, although I love what you said about being general, I do see a positive to this.
Sorry to talk so much. I also just want to say that I think that there are people in our school community and, you know, in our country, in the world, who don't recognize certain things that are on here as real, right? There are people who would say that there's no such thing as gender identity or expression. And thus, I think that for those people, if we said universal, they might not see that as included because they don't recognize that it exists. And because of that, I think that by writing it out here, we're saying to people who fall under that umbrella, like, we do recognize that you exist even though others might not.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely it does.
I do think one thing we talked about, and I still think this is a good thought, is like how we present the actual statement. And so right now it's in paragraph form, but I thought something we should consider is kind of how we chunk it out to make it easier to read. And so I do think if we add more things to that sentence, that making it like either bullety or table-y or something, like having it in a visually different way might help. Because I can see both sides, but I think in our community at this point in time, kind of calling some of these things out might be helpful for education purposes of our community. Although I do understand why other organizations use kind of broader terms, because you do risk that. I heard you when you said that part about risking, you know, leaving somebody out, and it's hard to get everything, and then it does make it kind of chunky. So I think, but I do think where we are, to Chloe's point, like trying to help educate through that might work.
Yeah, I think we have to like draw a line between listing every legally protected class and historically marginalized communities, because they're not the same list.
The other thing is, like, I think, because while we're at the same time doing this, we're doing the vision of the graduate work. So I think, like, there's a difference between what do we see for our students in the vision of the graduate versus what is our vision of equity for the district. And I think, like, it's easy right now while we're working on both to kind of cross the two, but I think that they are different things. And that our vision of equity for the district encompasses everybody within the district. And there's probably some crossover between the two, but they're two different pictures.
Is equity for students the same as equity for adults in the community?
I would say, just to quantify community, I think it's just the school district community,
Yes.
right? When we're
Yeah,
talking
that's
about
what I mean,
community,
yeah.
we're just
Yeah.
talking about, but we're not even talking about, we're not talking about everyone that lives in town, we're talking about people connected to the NKSD
Absolutely.
community.
Yep.
I know, in my brain
Yep.
sometimes I
Yeah.
conflate those.
And the only reason I asked the question is because I think, like Chloe kind of alluded to it, I do think that this statement was definitely written with a focus on students. You know what I mean? And so like if we are going to expand it, I'm not saying we shouldn't expand it, but if we're going to, I think we have to kind of go back to, we're gonna have to go back to see how it's gonna shape up. It's gonna look very different.
My understanding is that statement, that discrimination statement is what, like, really covers everybody at working in NKSD. And then this is more specific for students.
I think that the idea was that it was a vision for the district and how we perceive equity for the district, not just for students. Definitely, students are a part of it, obviously, because they are the biggest part of our district. But it would be how we perceive equity across all stakeholders within our community.
I would push, oh, go ahead.
Just jumping in, this is my first meeting, the first time I've seen the equity statement. And again, I know the goal is maybe to tailor it a little bit more. But I also think of people in North Kingstown who are maybe housing insecure, and those who would live in more transitional housing. Like, I'm thinking if you were a student who was in that community, it's probably not a large community, but is it possible that students like in that community might face some kind of discrimination.
Mhm.
Yeah.
To include in the.
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly how I would word that.
Yeah.
Housing
How does,
But
that's
if
what I'm
we're
thinking.
talking about people feeling as if they have a seat at the table, would somebody like that
I love that.
not feel
Mhm.
included?
That's a growing population in our town.
Yeah.
Jesus,
Mhm.
actually.
Mhm.
From the responses, the parent guardian response, 105, they mentioned including something about, size. And I don't know the veracity of it, but it seems like it might be true. They said that it's one of the last forms of discrimination that is legal still.
Yeah, I thought that comment was interesting.
The size discrimination.
Like body size, it was, yeah. I think for me, with the student versus everyone in the district, I feel like you can't have one without the other. Like if it's a circle, right? So like if your teachers and community members don't feel like they belong, then how can they make their students feel like they belong? So, and I also think, looking at the statement, to be honest, and maybe it's just my like rose-colored glasses, like if you change that last sentence, our goal is for every NKSD community member to apply their learning in ways that are both personally meaningful and socially responsible. Like our teachers and like they're always learning, they're always growing as humans and as educators. They do professional development every year. Like you could tweak it a little bit, but I think the concept is as you learn more, do better, like in different ways and put it and apply it. And so I didn't see the statement having to change massively to make it inclusive of all. And I would never want a world where a teacher or an administrator looks at this and is like, oh, but okay, this is great for students, but like that doesn't apply to me. Like I want them to feel that it applies to them. So that.
The only reason I'm bringing this up is because this statement it talks about application on learning for students.
Yep.
So would that change?
I guess I was saying your teachers learn all the time and have to apply what they learn too. So like if you go to a PD training and you learn about something, you're applying that. I don't know, but maybe I'm thinking too.
Like just maybe we would go back to just saying, instead of student, we would go back to NKSD community member,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Good.
We do offer learning opportunities for really anyone in the community. At certain times, they can come to arts showcases or performances.
Mm-hmm.
And we would expect that all of them would be treated equally as well.
What about the last part? Belonging that equips our students with knowledge and skills to be compassionate, informed, and engaged global citizens.
Community members?
Mm-hmm.
Could it be just community members?
Like it can be. Like the one in the middle, though, that ensures that all students are empowered to reach their full potential, that might need a little more tweaking.
I'm sorry, say that again?
The part in the middle ensures that all students are empowered to reach their full potential.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
That's the other part.
respectfully, I want teachers in our district to be empowered to reach their full potential.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like, of course we like, like I see it as like my philosophy is kind of like always a learner kind of energy, and so like I think we can tweak it a little bit. Like I don't want to try to force it, but I do think that a lot of the same things that we wish and hope for our students, like I wish and hope for our teachers, like and administrators.
No, I agree with you. I think we always say learning is really that is the goal of all. We are all learners. We all have to be learners. It's not just certainly not just students. So I think that statement is absolutely true. That we do want all of our community to be empowered.
I mean, I think it's also, as a teacher, and going, doing PD and just thinking about all the people involved to make the school work, function, and thrive. Yeah, you need there's such a deep interrelationship between all members, leadership, teachers, support staff, and then students. And without everyone working, you know, together, it's just, it's not gonna thrive.
Okay.
I guess the question is, are you okay with, if it just says students, are you okay with everyone else just being implied? I guess that's the question.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, you sat next to me. You won't make that mistake twice, don't worry. Tell him, you got it.
I think it should just be NK community members as a whole versus just students. Like everybody that walks into like a NK school district building feels like they're included, not just students. It can have like teachers, parents, literally anybody who's like part of the NK community should be included in the statement.
Should we say school community members or just community members all?
Well, this is the school department.
The school community, so that I think that defines it for, so that it's not just like a random
Right.
Northampton
NKSD
community member.
community
Yeah.
members.
Because we also have, in addition to teachers, full-time staff, we have itinerants, so you have people who are coming in providing related services. So that would be, even though they're only there maybe on a temporary basis each day or each week.
Someone did point out to me once too that we have students in the district that are not NK residents, and that's important too, like, and so I think whenever we say, like, we don't want to just say NK community members, like, it has to be, I think it's, the school department part of it really matters, because we have students that are in the CTE programs, we have students that come from different districts, Jamestown, of course, so just remembering that piece too, even though we're the inward Mason, obviously.
Yep, true. So we're talking school community members, we're talking about anybody obviously affiliated with our school department, okay, and then in any form, students, you know, families, staff members, et cetera, okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think we can massage this a little bit to kind of make that work in a way that flows, you know, we can work on that.
I think it would be doable to have it like more general for NKSD community members, but also have a sentence in there that is specifically about student outcome.
Okay.
That's a good thought.
What, just like, is there any sentence that kind of stands
I
out
haven't
to you or
gotten
something?
that far.
Okay, that's okay, that's totally fine, I just
That's an
wasn't sure of
absolute
anything.
thought.
So we can put that, okay.
But I think that's a good point about the parents too, because you want parents to feel like they can be an engaged part of the school community, not just the students and the teachers. And if parents don't feel like they are welcomed and gonna be treated equitably, then they're not gonna be an engaged part of the community.
Were there other things that, on the spreadsheet, like for the suggestions that jumped out to people or people thought were really good or important? Cause we're not gonna be able to, like, in a big group like this, we're not gonna be able to like wordsmith it, but like to give feedback or things that people noticed.
What I noticed, several times was people not liking the word regardless.
Yes.
And I think that I agree with that, that I don't like the word regardless. Like, that could be worded differently.
What was bad about it? That people were saying, let's say.
They definitely did not like that word.
This person said the phrase regardless of leaves the connotation that race, gender, orientation is a flaw that would be looked past in the NKSD, perhaps moving regardless of and simply stating students of all races, ethnicities, etc. That was from a parent response.
Sound better.
Yeah, I think it, yeah.
Yeah.
But some of them I put in the, like that one has a little bit more impact, but some were just like little grammar-y or different, like little tweaks like that I thought, yeah.
I'm just gonna put in my notes here to remove regardless, and I'll try to wordsmith it a little
Another thing for me, that didn't really come from the feedback, but it came from myself, is that I would prefer disability over the word ability. Cause when you don't call out disability specifically, you're kind of like erasing that people have disabilities.
I totally know what you're saying, but I kind of like ability because it's regardless of any ability, high, low, whatever you see yourself as, you know? What do you think of that?
Rob, when you said it out loud, you said it differently than how we have it typed. You had another word quantified with ability. Do you remember what you said? If not, Jen will watch the tape. Abilities, like,
Disability status.
Yeah,
Ability status.
So our non-discrimination statement does have disability
yeah.
as the word.
I think in like the disability community, the
Mhm.
word disability is the preferred word. Cause it like, it's calling it what it is, and not, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm seeing,
That's how I feel about it.
this here says ability is an individual's resources to perform well at something, and a disability means challenges and limitations an individual faces.
So when we don't say disability, we're not really recognizing that those people have challenges.
Okay. Mary?
So I don't know if this is helpful or not. I'm actually going to the National Disability Policy Seminar in Washington in 2 weeks, so.
Yeah, that feels
or-
helpful.
So I won't be here on the 10th.
I'm just saying.
I might be on the
I'm like,
plane.
Mary, go.
And I
Mary.
might be able to, so what I'm
Send us some
thinking,
notes.
because my son had a disability, and that was what we called it. But I'm learning more. I'm actually doing an internship up at the Children's Neurodevelopmental Center in Providence this year, and I know this has come up sometimes in some of our seminars, but I'm not sure like what is the preferred. So I would be happy to take that question, because this is gonna be people from a number of organizations across the United States. And if I get a quick answer, I can maybe just text it, because I will be on the plane coming home for the next meeting.
Nice.
Just to see if there are just any thoughts, like
Mhm.
swirling around that, if that's helpful.
Thanks, Mary.
Yeah, thank you.
Could be a combination too of like listing ability or disability. Like you could maybe list both. Like it's not redundant. It's to Dave's point, different definitions. So, but it'd be interesting to. I think that we
Yeah, I
could
would-
learn more.
What about level of ability? I don't know, that just popped.
Yeah.
I'd
I
be
mean-
interested to hear from the community.
Yeah,
at
same.
this-
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yep.
That for us.
Okay. All right.
The other thing I noticed that kind of was mentioned maybe a few times was active voice versus passive voice.
Yeah. We had some good
It was
ELA
nothing. I
teachers
loved
who
more. So I
definitely-
wasn't looking at
they
who wrote stuff.
they definitely sunk their teeth into it.
We
a
got
little bit.
English teachers,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
they were some comments from
Yeah.
the teacher. I don't know
They're
exactly
ready.
what they teach, but I have guesses, and, yeah. We would want it in active voice.
I,
Is there-
I thought that was a valid comment, like,
Yeah. Where are we passive voice here? Did they specify
I am
anything?
not an
Do you
English
remember?
teacher, so I can't
Yeah.
answer that, I can just pass along the comment.
Yep.
A little bit.
Will have the opportunity, this is passive.
My understanding of passive voice is when it's like it's not a direct verb, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's like a roundabout
It's to be
verb.
just like
Yeah.
present tense verb,
Yep.
pretty much.
So let's look at this. We envision a learning community where every student belongs. That's okay. All students will have the opportunity. So will
So
have
will have,
all students
so you wanna make everything
active.
present tense.
Yep.
Pretty much.
Yeah, you would take the will out, and it would say,
Yes.
have the opportunity.
Have the opportunity to thrive.
All students. Yeah.
We are committed. We are committed, or we commit.
We commit.
We commit.
We commit. Got it.
Yeah, we can go through and judge that there too. Something that I thought was really interesting in the feedback, and this came a lot from students, was the word kind. That was definitely, and I'm not sure if it will work into the thing, but I did wanna acknowledge, like when you're looking through the suggestions to the statement, like the word kind was repeated often and a lot of times connected to students. And then also, like nice, like be nice, like be kind, be nice. And so I thought that that was just something I wanted to note and bring up. I don't know where it would weave through, but I thought that that was interesting that the students particularly like connected that word to this, and that meant something to them of just, you know, like be kind, be nice, so.
I feel like having something that's using those kind of simpler words would help with the younger people. Like if they didn't understand every sentence in the thing, if they could
Yeah,
point
like,
to specific words and be like, okay, that's what that means.
yeah, like this isn't it, but like if you did a version of like in North Kingstown schools, we
Is
envision.
that simple, like include kind?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good for this. But like, I was just gonna give an example. Like, if you did go up to the no, go back. Hold on. Like, if you did in North Kingston schools, we envision a learning community where every student belongs. Like, and we prioritize kindness. Like, that's not it. But like, you could probably work it in somewhere in the statement if we wanted to incorporate that word somehow. But I thought that was interesting that they like that was probably the biggest repeated theme that I saw.
I'll just put simple, direct words. Are we okay with the first statement? The reason I ask is because we talk, me, myself, Dr. Duva, like us at administrative levels, talk a lot about belonging. You know what I mean? But I just wanna make sure like that statement makes sense more broadly than the way we talk about it, you know what I mean?
I'd love to hear what the students think
Yeah.
of how they relate to that word.
Yeah.
I think it's really, really relevant, especially as more and more students are identifying with different labels. The question of like, do I belong, is something that I even hear students talking about in my life. The question of like being welcomed not just by the teachers but by the students and by the community, I think is more important than ever as students are expressing themselves differently and conformity is less like accentuated within the student body. That's just my opinion.
Thank you,
I
Claudia.
think belonging is really important. Like as somebody who's moved from school to school in the past, like when you move to a school, you want to be welcomed and know that you belong. And when you like go to a school where you think like you don't belong, like something like this where like administrators and stuff say that you belong would feel good to somebody who doesn't think they belong.
When you think it in your head though, do you think the word belong or do you think something else? Like if you're going to a new school, do you think, oh, I hope I belong, or is there a different word that students like might think?
I think belong kind of sums it up really well.
Yeah.
I think students might say fit in, but I think belong is a better
Or
word to use.
like
welcome.
welcome, welcome.
Or
Yeah.
like
Because
are comfortable like being themselves, or like feel like themselves, you know. I feel like that's an important thing to think about.
I like that, comfortable being themselves.
Okay, so we're okay with it?
Several people mentioned like the lack of or they said something like, so this is great, but what, like, so there were comments about, how do you execute this, or like what happens, do we want to add to this, to say, like, and this is how we intend to, like, or, I mean, not like a specific, like, and this is the steps, but, you know, there were some suggestions about ways to kind of show that it's more than words, implementation and accountability, I'm trying to.
So,
I do agree, but it does say through intentional policies, practices, and community partnerships, we start, you know, like it does call out a couple things, maybe we need to add a little to that, but it does, to me, it has a little bit of action implication in it.
I kind of think that the first part of that sentence would mean more if it was split off from the second half. So if it, you know, said through intentional policies, practices, et cetera, but then the whole part with like equipping students could be a separate thought.
Oh, like a period would be a word.
So like if you had a sentence where you're just calling out that we're intentionally doing policies and practices, and it doesn't like trail off
Yeah.
into
So
another.
two
So
sentences?
splitting those sentences, yeah, so the note would be splitting that last sentence maybe into 2 sentences, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
There was some feedback about the word fairness. Is it in there or is it? Yeah.
We got
the-
promote
yeah.
fairness, yeah.
So there was a couple of comments where people were writing about, promote fairness is vague and might be more impactful to say promote equitable and inclusive. Someone else talked about fairness and how fairness doesn't always mean equal. And so I did think that might be worth, like, some feedback from the committee on, the use of fairness and if there's a better choice or a different way to say that, or if people liked it.
So just to put it into context, what we're talking about is through intentional policies, practices, and community partnerships, we strive to eliminate disparities, promote fairness, and cultivate a culture of belonging. Okay.
Yeah, that's where I would end the sentence, and then the.
Yeah, and then start the
and then
next sentence
that would
there.
be a
Yep.
separate thought.
I think what people were saying was maybe that fairness
But-
in that sentence wasn't.
We just
I-
took out fairness.
I
Yeah, I don't
do
think
not like the
fairness
word
belongs.
fairness.
Take it
Yeah.
all out.
Can kindness go in there instead?
I feel like there's a lot of words that are better than fairness.
What about equity, just putting equity instead of fairness?
What do you-
What do we
I feel-
think?
I feel like it's already in there, I think that the fairness thing can just go.
Yeah,
How about promote kindness?
yeah, fair to me implies that we're trying to make sure everybody gets something equal, and it's not about equal, it's about equitable.
Yeah.
How about
So fair, I don't
empathy?
think.
How about promote empathy? Because
And
kindness
kindness.
is just like, you're weird, but I guess I'll be nice to you. But empathy is like, let me sit in your shoes. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I see it,
Okay.
you know? Right? You've never had mean
But
girls
again,
at
is
your school?
empathy
Come on.
kid-friendly?
I do
Or-
think that's more nice.
What?
The good-
No,
I
no.
was saying, is empathy a kid-friendly word? Do
Yes.
kids, like, I feel like high school kids are still confused with what empathy is.
There's a Sesame Street episode about empathy.
Yeah.
I think it's.
We should.
I'm just throwing it out there. I think it's a.
I agree, I think it might be a
It's
little,
more difficult.
a lot of kids aren't gonna know what it means.
I
It
like
could be an
kindness too.
opportunity to learn though.
Yeah.
I
'Cause
agree.
The
I
fairness
agree.
part, I think
hard.
people might be a little bit like skeptical, like,
Yeah.
is life really fair?
Yeah, yeah.
True.
Right.
But I think the empathy is like putting yourself, trying to understand, even if you have not experienced the same thing, but at least having good intentions and saying, I'm willing to see things from your viewpoint, even though it may never be where I'm coming from.
So I think for like the purposes of like, we can make a note about the fairness word and then think if we need to add, like maybe that's an opportunity to add something we wanna add or something, you know, but it does seem like there's some, the committee agrees with some validity about that word and adjusting it.
Shabelle, am I imagining it, or at the end of your weekly emails, does it say kind at the bottom with something?
It says the skipper, and kind is one of them.
Is one of them, okay, all right,
It's the K in the skip.
yeah. I'm
First
like,
K or
I
the
know
second?
I see that kind
No,
word
skip
every
it, no.
week,
Sorry.
okay.
But I do like the word kindness, and I'll say that only because it came up several times from students, and it's something that seems to be directly related to inclusion, or when something is, and I don't know, Bill, tell me if that makes sense, as a student body, when there is an experience that may be negative, right, like the response is like, be kind of thing, so I think it just resonates, and tell me if it's not true with the student body, so that's why I just like the word kind.
I think that, yeah, we get a lot of people use kindness, like that's kind of like a very powerful word for, cause like if you think about like, if someone like tells you like you're kind, like that's one of like the best compliments you can get, and like, it's just a very like powerful thing just to say too.
Couldn't you do both and put kindness and empathy? promote, like, say, promote kindness and empathy, so you cover everything?
You could
Because
put
fair-
both of them in there.
Because fairness just seems kind of vague, whereas when you put both, you know you're covering everything.
So that would read, through intentional policies, practices, and community partnerships, we strive to eliminate disparities, promote empathy and kindness, and cultivate a culture of belonging, and then we'll end it there. Kinda like that.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah? You good?
Yeah.
I like it. Let's do
I
it.
have a question. Through intentional policies, practices, and community partnerships, do you think the community will be questioning what all those descriptives are? Are you inviting, the community to question what those things are? Because I would read that as, what are those policies, what are those practices, and what are those community partnerships? I think if you don't spell that out, it's going to invite, people to question what
Mhm.
that is.
Well, I think that speaks directly to kind of Jen's point too, and a lot of the feedback we got, which is like, what's the what? You know what I mean? Like that we move forward from here. I think that we're kind of alluding to, like, what the action will be. We're alluding to it without going there. You know what I mean?
I do,
Yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
I do, so this can't live by itself, that's one thing, we know that we're gonna need like some action steps and some different things that go along with this, but also, I do think that we could do a slightly stronger job of calling that out. Obviously, you wouldn't go into specifics, but it does seem a little vague, and we might be able to be a little bit more strong about kind of what we're committed to as a district. So I'm not gonna be able to pull it out of a hat like right now, but I do think that even though I pointed out that we had those in there, like, I do think we can make that a little stronger, and a little bit more clear to folks, than what it is right now.
I also don't think that we have to limit ourselves to one paragraph. Like, a lot of the equity vision statements that I've seen from other districts are not one paragraph long. Like, I think that instead of trying to make one paragraph say everything, we could expand it to be more than one.
Okay.
Yeah, like you could say something like action in
We'll move
NKSD
this onto
looks
one
like
page if that's what
boom,
they-
boom,
just so
boom,
we
boom,
can-
like you could like
Right.
to have a whole kind of section about kind of outlining that a little bit more for folks.
Yeah, like, I don't think we should have like a
Yeah.
14-page descriptive, but like, we could definitely make it longer than a paragraph.
So what's, for a note here, do we wanna consider adding, more specificity? Is that what we're talking about?
I would say either eliminate that or add specificity, one of the two, so that there's no vagueness in it.
I think two people need to see it
Yeah,
and think, how can I be part of, like, they need to know like where they play a role in this, like, it's not just the school committee editing policies, right? Like, it's what, like, I feel like everyone in the community needs to be able to understand their role and their actionable part in it. So I think we need to think a little bit about that. I've seen other statements that kind of call that out a little bit of, you know, our community members like do X, Y, Z. I don't know what those things are, but like, you know, like it kind of like puts it on everyone, not just the superintendent or the assistant superintendent or the school committee. So we can think about that too when we're thinking about that piece, I think.
I guess I would have, like that, so as someone like working on the drafting of it, I guess, like my hesitation with that is like, what do we include? You know what I mean? Like, what would we include as, would we wanna include examples of intentional policies, practices, partnerships? If so, what's guiding us about what we choose to include versus what we don't choose to include, you know, because I just don't know, I don't know, I feel a little hesitant to be presumptuous, you know what I mean? When this is work that's gonna be the work of obviously many, I don't know, am I making sense?
I do think it sounds very deliberate, and it doesn't sound transparent, but when you just cut out that orange part, just
Mhm.
putting, we strive to eliminate disparities already, sounds like you're doing something about it, vice something vague that is not transparent, right? So we strive to eliminate disparities, promote empathy and kindness, and those are very action-oriented statements that invite doing multiple things, vice, we have certain policies and practices, and we're developing community partnerships that aren't listed there, that would invite community scrutiny on what those activities are.
You could change, to add to, I don't know, add on to what you just said, you could change those 3 to actionable ones. So like improving policies, implementing practices, and like creating community like you could change it to the same language of what you were just saying was good about the bottom ones, maybe. I don't even know if I like that idea.
What does the group think about this? I'm curious. Is there any, is there any feeling on this? Chloe?
I will say that in the meetings that, I know, you were there, in the meetings with Saga and REA, they really emphasized, or students, including myself, but also other students, really emphasized, we have all this stuff that we're talking about, but what are we actually doing? What are we actually gonna do? They wanted to see, language through intentional policies, et cetera, and so I kind of would be more on the side of making that more specific than eliminating it. Because that's something that students really emphasized when we were talking to them.
We did hear a lot of that from students. The stuff we heard from students a lot was we're sick of hearing jokes about that, jokes about people, that are really offensive. We're sick of, they were talking about in the kids' world, this is what they are hearing and experiencing. They said that multiple times. We're sick and tired of hearing people make fun of other kids.
Right, and what are you gonna do about it?
And what's gonna be done? Because the feeling is that these things happen and nothing occurs. So yeah, go ahead.
I feel like if we wanted to keep them in, maybe if we instead of necessarily adding specific examples, we could explain what each one what we want to what we want it to do and stuff. So each one we could just talk a bit more about it.
When you say each one, you mean the policies, practices, and partnerships?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd say that being more specific would be, I'd like that more, because when you go into specifics, it shows that you're actually gonna do something to stop the jokes and stuff like that. Whereas if you're just kind of vague, it's not as assuring for a student who's reading it. Whereas if you go into more specifics, you're confident that administration is gonna do something about it.
Thank you. Okay. So we'll look into, go ahead.
For me, it's the word intentional, and that I think it's important that is there for people to see, and that it's not a reactive thing, that we can do it. And that it goes to Jen's question, going back to the implementation, what does this look like? What are the actual action items? And I don't know if we can put all of that in a statement right now.
I agree.
Yeah. And I'm looking at the DEI subcommittee page on the school department website. And I wonder if it's just a matter of formatting, it's how it's rolled out, it's what are the actions that are tied to this. And is it how we have purpose here, that's the statement. And if we scroll down, we have definitions and then implementation. And maybe under implementation, it's here are direct policies that have been implemented during our time, boom, boom, boom. Here are community partnerships, here are practices. And we just gotta be on top of that in terms of updating, making that visible and making people know that this is where the action can be kind of recorded or shared or whatever, so that it isn't just the top part of the statement, but there's stuff to back it up.
Yeah, see,
So
I
I think I'm,
agree.
like,
I agree
bigger
with that,
picture.
because I feel like we run the risk if we're getting too much into the statement with that kind of, we run the risk of the statement just being kind of almost an impenetrable document. It just reads a little too much, and I think I like exactly kind of That's just me, you know what I mean? But I like what you're describing there, you know what I mean?
Because
I
we
like-
have and we are doing that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We're just not calling attention to it. Like, we
Yeah.
know it, and
Yeah.
maybe some other people know it. But we're not saying, hey, look, we have been intentionally doing
Mhm.
these things. So I do think you're right, Melissa, like, calling attention to that and showing that intentionality.
Right, so I'm just gonna put here, consider, restructuring or, say structuring. DEI website to align, to directly reference intentional policies, practices, and partnerships. Right, is that what we're kind of saying? Like, we want the website to be, to visually like, show like, here's the statement, here are the intentional policies, practices, partnerships that have been enacted, that go right back up there.
Yeah.
Okay.
See below,
Yep.
hyperlink,
Yep,
whatever.
yep.
I think something,
Stars.
I think something that I completely agree with Melissa, that was very smart, we'll watch the tape back and, like, you laid it out very nicely, so good job, Webmaster, for sure. I think something too, though, that struck me, I can't remember who said it, is it's not just what the administration's doing to change the culture here, it's everyone, and I don't know how we, what did that thing just do?
It's okay.
Okay. I can still be freaked out by it though.
Yeah, we can.
But like it's in my eyes, like it's everyone's responsibility, so how do we have a statement like this that makes everyone realize that they play a part in this, including students, right? And I know obviously like certain situations and certain things like aren't safe enough for students to push back on things, but like in my mind, like students should feel empowered to try to disrupt things. And so I'm wondering how we convey that this isn't just administration, but every person in the community can play a part in helping us move this forward. So I don't know the exact words, but I do think that that's important to convey, because I think it's true. I'll think of it like 2 a.m. All right.
I have some ideas.
Just something to think about.
Okay, I just put in there how to convey that all have a role in moving this work forward, not just adults. That's kind of where we're getting at.
Is there anything we missed that people in the themes? Not counting like the grammar ones, like we can just look at those and determine.
Take this orange out, 'cause it's in my notes. The changes.
So I do have some stuff, but I think maybe Rob, when you bring this back, like, and we talked about this the last time, like, when we roll this out, like, for real, we're gonna have some, like, education to do with the community, like, all community, not just the school community, about what an equity vision statement is, what it isn't, but that's like a discussion for that. So, like, next steps, you're gonna have to redo all the work that you did, no, I'm just kidding. Like, and then we'll have the discussion about the draft, and then like the next steps, once you have the next draft, is that what you're envisioning?
Yeah. Like the next steps as far as like the
That
next,
was such a
sorry.
leading question, Jay.
Sorry.
You're like, I'm gonna tell you exactly what I want you to do and make a
No, that's
question
what I'm
ready.
asking, so like you leave here, and
Yep.
then what happens next?
So I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna work on this. Got my notes, I'm gonna kinda try to shape it up into incorporating what we've discussed. I'll bring it back to our group and we'll, I guess, look at it again and determine if we are good to go with it. And then my thought, again, my thought was that the statement is the focus, and that once we get the statement down, then, not like we would, it's not like we're waiting for like a statement to like do anything, but like, I don't know, my thought was like the statement we would get down, and then we would just, that would become the vision, right? That we would align our work towards, you know? So we would make sure that we have, like, not to be it, but intentional, actions that we take that align what we're doing to the statement. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
I was just scrolling through quick to see if there was anything we didn't talk about. The only word that we don't have in there, I don't think, that people wrote a couple times was the word included. which kind of echoes like what some of the students said about like feeling welcome and that thing. So that would be one that I would just put a note at the bottom about like if the word included seemed to be one that particularly students used a couple times.
There is a space for it where you have the word belonging, culture of belonging, you can put culture of inclusion instead. Unless you want to highlight that, going back to that first statement.
That was kind of my thing there, and I don't know, I think that, and again, I'll leave this to the group. We talk more about belonging, not that we don't talk about inclusion, but I feel, this is just me, I feel like inclusion, is kind of evolving to more belonging, and I say that because inclusion, I think, kind of is a little bit, it can be a little bit presumptuous about there can be an othering factor with inclusion a little bit, whereas belonging is more of like, and this is how we kind of talk about it, is more like it's all, right? It's not like, okay, we're including you. It's, no, you belong. You know what I mean? That's kind of our thinking around it, at least, but I'm certainly open to hearing any other perspectives on it. That's kind of how we talk about it more. That belonging speaks a little more powerfully to, it's not just like, oh yeah, we got to make sure we include you. It's, oh no, you belong. Like you're with us. You're totally like in it. And that's where that's coming from a little bit. I don't know if anyone feels like, again, there's a different thought there.
I agree with you.
Okay.
I agree. It, like, in the work I do at my job with affinity groups, we focus on the word belonging. We've kind of like moved away from the word inclusion.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I thought. Is it just a more? We feel it's a more powerful word.
Yeah.
I think, you know.
And I think of inclusion, I think of like what you were saying, students a little bit, just like coming in and being able to be your authentic self, not having to change or put on a mask to fit in or be a certain way, and to have your own authentic voice, and your voice is going to be heard and not made fun of. No matter who you are.
And I think that the state, when they can feel that way, to me, I look at that as that's when they could truly feel like they belong.
Yeah.
Right? Like just.
Right. Like you are who you are, and you know, that's who you don't have to be anything else. You know, you are who you are, and you are in it with us. You know. All right. Is that okay? So can we just stick with that? Is that good?
It wasn't my word, it was, I just, people just said like they wanna feel included, that's
Yeah.
all. So I was just bringing it up as like thinking through it, like I see difference in belonging and included, but, and we don't, I just was looking at like what the people gave us feedback on and what we hadn't talked about yet, and that was something that just stuck out to me. So, I'm not advocating for or against it, I just
Okay.
wanted to bring it up as what the feedback from the community was.
Is the group okay with that though? Is that okay? All right. So I'll just we'll stick with what we have. All right. Any other thoughts?
I kind of wanted to go back on the ability versus disability thing.
Okay.
And I know I already said that we should include both kindness and empathy, but I also think we should both, like, well, maybe, but I think we should include both ability and disability to let people interpret it, because there are different interpretations of like different disabilities. Like ADD is like a disability, but there's also the fact that it can be like a superpower in some situations where you can like hyper focus on things and just like ignore everything else that's going around you. So I could see like people like leave it for the people reading it to interpret it versus just choosing one and potentially leaving out other like things.
Okay. I think that's a good thought. I mean, we can. I'm I do wanna hear back from Mary's experience, on that matter, but I think that I see where you're getting at, it's a good thought. Yeah,
I think that with how we're talking about how to convey like students having a role in like moving things forward as well as teachers, maybe like how we said that like learning applies to everyone in the community, teaching could also apply to everyone, and we could add something about teaching and how both students and teachers can like teach each other and grow as a community.
I love that.
That's great.
Alright, let me try to capture that.
We have it on tape too, don't
We're all
worry.
Yeah. We're all
It's like the
watching, I
tape
know, right?
part's really weird.
Alright.
You get used to it now, but then the great part about it is that like if you like miss something, you're like, I can just rewatch that. Great. And then if we do it right, which like sometimes we do.
80-20.
Listen, it's hard.
For all. Something along those lines, like teaching and learning for all.
Mm.
I love what you just said though, I really do, because I think that like we talk about that, we literally do. We talk about all the time about how like as teachers, students are learning, yes, students are learning from teachers, but we are learners, we're learning from our students because we're learning about how we best can reach the different individuals who we have in our classroom. That's really right on. Nice job.
I'll pull it off the tape for you.
Thanks. Yeah, she said it way better than I put it in there, yeah, yeah. All right.
Thank you all. Will you be heartbroken if we skip the last agenda item? Cause
That's
I'm
okay,
guessing you
yeah, no,
can't
it's totally
probably
fine.
squeeze, I don't wanna squeeze it and
No,
not
it's
give
okay,
it the
it's
time
okay.
that it's devoted to.
Absolutely, yeah,
Okay.
not a problem at all. This is really
Yeah.
great discussion, and I think I can speak for the group, and I'm saying I'm really excited for our new team.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is awesome.
Absolutely.
What a
This
great
is
group.
great.
What a
Thank
great
you
group, really exciting, great, I mean, fantastic, discussion tonight, and, you know, we look forward to this. This is it's exciting work we're doing, right? It's exciting work we're doing, and it's great to have so many, different voices around the table, who have so many different experiences and perspectives.
Jen, I know you don't want to go into agenda item 5, but could we get maybe just a preview of what it is, just so the
Sure.
committee knows like what to expect for the next conversation, because it's clear, but also like I think it might help for folks.
Absolutely, so,
Yeah.
it's one of the things that we identified this year as part of our DEI work was the concept of student voice and expanding student voice or lifting student voice in our schools. And one practice that I wanted to bring forward, and I think I'd like to discuss, is in the spirit of that, is a practice of feedback, okay? The research on learning is that feedback is obviously the driver of most learning. That's how we learn as people, right? Is feedback is a huge driver of that learning. And so from a teaching and learning practice, our students receive feedback all the time. You all receive feedback from your teachers about, you know, how you do on a particular assignment, a test, or essay, whatever it might be. I'd like to see a practice where the adults are receiving feedback from more places. Specifically, the adults are receiving feedback from you students. So one of the things that I'd like to see happen, and then we can talk about how we systemize it and make it something that is productive and positive, and not something that is like not that, is to just talk about how we're going to make that happen and how we can promote this. I'd like to see it be promoted not as a top-down thing from me, but as something we can like build together, like with our teaching staff, with our educators, and so on and so forth, so that it's a practice that is enriching for people, where students feel like they feel good because they have a voice in like how their class is going, and teachers are feeling that they are getting really good and immediate and direct feedback about their practice that they can use to get better, you know, from their students. That's my thought around it.
6:51 p.m.
Hope so.
Yeah. Thank you. So that's just a thought I've had. I do believe in it. I feel it's a very good practice, and I feel like it's something that really can make us all better at what we do, and also build the community feel of it's a togetherness thing. We're all in it, and we're all learning. So that's just my thought there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Kids are all smiling.
Like, oh, we'll get feedback.
Awesome, thank you. I will make a motion to, oh, just to clarify, yes, thank you. There was an error on the date, on the link that I sent out. Our next meeting is April 10th, like it said on the agenda, not April 17th. So our next meeting is April 10th at 5:30. Thanks for reminding me, Mary.
That was not what I was gonna remind you, but.
Oh,
something
okay.
else. But sort of building on what Rob said about that community feel, could I make a suggestion that, we do this at our CLAC meetings? We have tent cards with people's names, so that.
Yes.
It's just, it's real simple, you just take the, cardstock, fold it over, and you can
And you
just
put the
reuse
name on
it.
it, yes.
Just,
Maybe the title under it too, I don't know.
yeah, just so if like we're across the room,
And you're
and
like,
somebody
who
makes
is
a
that?
point,
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
not, hey, that person over there.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
a good idea.
Thank you, Mary.
Yes.
Mhm. I'll get on that. we got,
Will you?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
arts
yeah,
and
we got that
crafts,
here.
thank you. Okay.
I'll get
Not
the
my
card
forte,
stock, yeah.
yes.
The very cool thing that group does is they also write the, like, I don't know if we have them exactly, but like it could be cool to put on the other side, the side that faces us, like what the charge of like what the goal that we're working towards, like they put, I think, their rules or their like whatever.
It's like, oh yeah, this goes way back, it's kind of like rules, like basic decorum, please turn off your phone, anything that's discussed in here, is confidential, although that may be different because we're recording.
Definitely not
No,
confidential.
they're not the same, but it's cool, they use it for not
Yeah.
only
So
extra.
like meeting norms kind of thing?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I can probably send it to you, I'm pretty sure I still, because I did the original ones.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's a great
Yeah,
idea.
that is a
Yeah.
good idea.
And
Yeah.
even if we didn't do that, we could put like the charge of the DEI committee is X, just as like, I think that's cool when you're like sitting there and face us.
Yep.
And then our names would face up.
I like it.
Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, awesome.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Have a good night.
I'm gonna turn the recording off so nobody's saying anything. Sue.